I made enemies for my game. I'm currently implementing the last features of Cloud Escape's new tower mode, and this one also includes enemies for the first time. I already introduced one enemy, Flip Dude, the friendly guy who chases you on sight and tries to knock you off the map. Today I'm excited to show you the two remaining enemies. Lil Boom, the little explosive box that gets mad at you when you interrupt his slumber. And Spinny Boy. His deadly swinging arms take up a lot of space. But if you are able to jump on his head, you get rewarded with a mobile jump pad. That might be useful. Flip Dude and Spinny Boy both use a rigid body based character controller. Both are moving on a computed nav mesh and can interact with external physical forces. Since the colliders of both enemies differ in dimensions, they need separate nav mesh agent settings. Unity 2020 isn't capable of creating more than one nav mesh agent, with different nav meshes by default, so I added an official nav mesh extension called nav mesh components. Nav mesh components allows the creation of separate nav meshes and nav mesh agents. The process of creating these is pretty much straightforward. Lil Boom, on the other hand, isn't moving on a nav mesh and doesn't have a nav mesh agent component attached. This little fella is nothing more than a rigid body based cube collider with some extras. He has a custom character controller, an animator component linked to an animation controller, and 2 range zones to detect player distance. Lil Boom is more of a sleepy kind of creature. If you as the player get closer to him and enter his outer range zone, Lil Boom awakes from his slumber and is visibly confused. He is on guard and looking for the troublemaker who woke him up. If you get even closer, entering the inner range zone, Lil Boom recognizes you as the bad guy and gets mad. He jumps towards you, filled with anger. If he touches you, he explodes and knocks you off the map. But sometimes he just jumps into a cruel death. Yeah. Now that you know the baddies of tower mode, let's talk about the tech stuff of all enemies. Line of sight detection. The range detection of Lil Boom is simple. As you've already witnessed, Lil Boom has 2 invisible cylinders around him. Both cylinders have mesh colliders attached and are marked as triggers. A trigger is comparable to a collider, but all physical forces are ignored. If you just want to check the intersection of 2 game objects, you mark a collider as a trigger. Flip Dude and Spinny Boy are both using more advanced tech to detect line of sight. Both have a LOS sensor component that is part of the sensor toolkit. The line of sight sensor is using Raycasts to check if an object is blocking line of sight between 2 points. A raycast is an invisible ray that gets casted from a point of origin into a certain direction. In our case, the origin point is our enemy, and the ray gets casted into the direction of the player. You can configure this ray, telling it to stop after a certain distance or to only hit specific layers. If the ray now hits a wall, before it reaches the player, there's no visual contact between the enemy and the player. In this case, the enemy doesn't get aggroed and stays in its idle state. Using multiple raycasts per frame is a demanding task and should be avoided. The sensor toolkit allows you to customize the poll rate of a sensor. If you set this poll rate to 0.5 for example, the LOS operation is only performed every 30 frames if you are playing on a locked frame rate of 60 FPS. This is more than enough for an operation like checking line of sight of something. Enemy behavior. All of the 3 enemies are using their very own state machines. If something like an enemy game object can be in a number of states, we are talking about a finite state machine. In most cases, switching the state of a state machine is bound to 1 or more conditions. For example, if my character is falling off a platform, he switches his current state from walking to falling. There are a lot of reasons to strictly define states of interactive objects. The moment my character is not touching the ground anymore, I want to change the animation from walking to falling. The same goes for my enemies. Flip Dude and Spinny Boy share the same base character controller and have the same 2 states. If the player is inside, they get aggroed, and their state changes from idle to chasing. If the player quickly gets out of a certain range or hides behind an obstacle, the state switches back to idle and the enemy stops moving. Lil Boom has a total of 3 states. Sleeping, if the player is far away. Idle or on guard, if the player is inside the outer range detection zone, but not inside the inner one. And chasing, if the player is inside the inner zone. Leaving these zones will switch the states back in reverse. Technical details. All enemies are using a special toon shader with a red rim light. I thought it was fitting to give the bad guys a uniform red detail. Flipdude is the only enemy with a humanoid rig. His rig features arms, a neck and a head, even if they are not visible. Using a humanoid rig gives you the advantage of using humanoid animations, like the ones from Mixamo. Lil Boom's animations are handmade directly in Unity. I wanted to stretch his model while jumping to give him a kind of cartoonish look. Flipdude's rotating inner body has a simple convex mesh collider, but you won't notice in-game. When Lil Boom jumps off the map into his cruel death and the distance to his spawn location exceeds 50 meters, he will just respawn after some seconds. He will also respawn after some seconds after he successfully exploded. That's all for today's devlog. It was more technical than usual, but I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're excited for Tower Mode, feel free to wishlist Cloud Escape on Steam. After the free Tower Mode update is available, there will be another Cloud Escape sale on Steam. Yay! If you liked the video, feel free to leave a like and think about subscribing to my channel. That would really help me out. Thanks for watching guys, take care and see you soon. Bye.